and I am an air quality meteorologist. So I will tell you a little bit about how I ended up in this position. It's not at all what I thought I would be doing when I first developed an interest in meteorology, but I've been here 10 years now, so I guess it's a good fit for me. So how I started my interest in weather was actually growing up in the Chicago suburbs. Most of you probably know just from watching the news that they get a very wide variety of extreme weather in Chicago. And I was particularly interested in tornadoes, lightning, and snowstorms. I know I was in the minority enjoying snowstorms in the Midwest. Most people get really frustrated with them, but I just thought they were great. One of my early inspirations was Tom Skilling on WGN. He's one of their on-air broadcasters, and he is still there today, and I still will occasionally turn on the channel on cable just to get to see Tom Skilling again. But my real interest in weather actually developed in my 8th grade science class with my teacher, Mrs. Min, and I still regret that I have never had a chance to go back and tell her that she inspired my career. So I thought that was particularly important to mention to this audience, just to remind you that the one little class assignment can spur somebody to make their career goals. But our class participated in an 8-week weather unit, and some of the projects we did was making our own instruments and then trying to replicate meteorological phenomena through in-class experiments. So for example, just using empty 2-liter soda bottles, we made clouds develop in the classroom, and we made simulated tornadoes in the bottles. And then a picture that I have shown here is an example of one of the instruments we made, which is just a simple barometer that the students can use to measure the relative pressure changes. Now, of course, it's not precise with an exact numeric amount, but you can see from day to day if the pressure is increasing or decreasing. So with these instruments, as well as some actual purchased ones like thermometers, we were paired up with a partner, and everybody was given a different point on campus where we would go each day and make our measurements, and then we would compare them and see how things varied, from the north end to the south end of the school grounds. And I was fascinated with that weather unit, and I thought it was particularly good to note that I liked it even though I could not stand the kid I was partnered up with. So I took that as a good sign that it was a field that I might enjoy working in. Okay, so from then on, a few years later, it was time to apply to colleges, and I was one of the lucky ones that I did know what I wanted to major in prior to picking a school. So I applied specifically to schools that offered a meteorology or atmospheric science degree program, and I settled on going to Cornell University, where I got a bachelor's degree in atmospheric science. And while I was there, in addition to my relevant coursework, I took on a couple of summer jobs that were related to meteorology. The first one was the summer after my freshman year, and I was awarded a NASA space grant, which is a summer program designed for undergraduates, and I assisted one of the faculty members in the space science department researching the possibility of tornadoes and dust devils on Mars. And of course, this was well before the current Mars rovers, where they have these fabulous detailed images. So I was working off of very grainy black and white images from the 1970 mission to Mars. But it was a really interesting learning experience. And in fact, about 6 years later, well after I had forgotten the project, it ended up as a journal publication. So my little summer internship ended up getting me published as 4th author on a paper. Then the summer after my junior year, I opted to stay on campus again, and I took on the position of recording the daily weather observations at the campus weather station. And that is what the picture on this slide is showing, just a variety of instruments in what looks like a nice little rural plot of land. Now, this is one of the more favorable pictures. It turns out that this is not a appropriately sited weather station, but it was very close to campus. So every morning at 8 o'clock, I would go out and look at the data loggers and see what the maximum and minimum temperature had been, how much precipitation had fallen, and then just make sure that the instruments were all functioning properly. One of the unfortunate parts of the job was, if you can see there's this little round instrument in the middle on the ground. That's actually what we call the evaporation pan, and it's just filled with standing water. And unfortunately, sometimes birds would go in there to die, and we had to fish them out. So that was one of the less pleasant parts, but it was still interesting to see how all the instruments worked. In addition, that was, of course, just a once a morning function of my job. I was hired by one of the professors to help update the introductory course lab manual with more relevant or recent weather systems to make it more interesting for the students when they were doing their analysis. And then finally, as an undergrad, my last related work experience was getting to be a teaching assistant my senior year for the freshman level meteorology lab. And that was really interesting because we used the lab manual that I had just updated over the summer, so I felt very comfortable with that. Okay, after undergrad, I continued on with my schooling and went to the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, where I got a master's degree in atmospheric science. And I'll just say right here that you don't need to have a master's degree to work in the field of meteorology. I just didn't want to stop being a student yet, so I decided to continue on for a couple of more years. And while I was there, I conducted research on freezing precipitation in the eastern U.S. So this includes freezing rain and freezing drizzle. Did not include snow. So this is just the precipitation that turns the roads into ice rinks when you're trying to drive on them. And this picture on the right can demonstrate what freezing rain can do on street signs, where you just get that solid sheet of ice. In addition, while I was there, I continued with my teaching, and I helped to teach 2 different introductory meteorology courses each semester. And then, just as an aside, one of my personal milestones while I was there was I got to go on my first tornado chase, and we actually saw one in Iowa. And to this day, nobody else I know has ever gotten lucky enough to see a tornado on their first chase out. So that was very exciting. Unfortunately, now I live in California where we don't get tornadoes. So after finishing grad school, I took a position at Sonoma Technology, which is an air quality consulting firm. And we have about 70 employees here, and 15 of us are meteorologists, including our company president. So it was really attractive to me that the scientists could succeed all the way to the highest levels of the company. More than half of our company holds at least a master's degree or a PhD, and about 40% of our employees have been here for over 10 years, which, hearing all that, even when I was applying, was really reassuring that it was a company that cared about the people and did respectable work, because if they didn't have respectable work, people would leave. So I was excited to have a chance to work with this group. And as you can see from my bullets here, there's a very wide range of science degrees represented here at our company. Many of us have atmospheric science or meteorology degrees, but there are also various environmental science and engineering fields, chemistry, even a few biologists and physics, and different engineers. So at our company, we have a wide range of business areas, including general air quality, data monitoring and analysis. We do some climate change work. Everybody who's watched the news in the last 5-10 years knows that this is a very up-and-coming topic of discussion. Whichever way you feel about it, it's definitely a hot topic. So there is work to be done, and we are getting some funding from various government agencies to look into the impacts of climate change on emissions in different parts of the country and how that translates into air quality problems. We also have a business area looking at forest and fire ecology, and of course meteorology has a very large role in that business area as far as what's going to cause fires to start, where a thunderstorm is going to occur, what are the winds going to do as far as spreading the smoke or the fire, things like that. So this is a relatively new business area, but it's really taken off for us. We also do just straight meteorological work. We have some instruments that we will lease out to clients who need special studies done. So we will go install the instruments, run them, maintain them, perform data analysis. And we also do software and website development for environmental data. And this is something that I have recently gotten more involved with because meteorology and environmental data is pretty specialized, and it's very different than a lot of other data sets out there in the world. In particular, it's something that you need to look up in the vertical direction. So We know winds occur at all levels of the atmosphere. If you've ever taken a plane ride, you know that the strength of the headwind or the tailwind can dramatically impact how long it takes your flight to get somewhere. So we've had to come up with creative ways for displaying and storing the data and allowing users to interact with that in a way that they can answer whatever questions they need. And then in addition, we have a business area that focuses on training and public outreach. As we know, science is a very complicated topic, and you want to be able to convey in a very clear, concise message what the bottom line information is. So we have a whole group that works just on public outreach materials to support government agencies that don't have the staff in-house to do that work themselves. Okay, so my particular career path here at Sonoma Tech, I was hired as a meteorologist 1, and right away I got trained on how to forecast air quality. So just like you see your daily weather forecast, many cities around the country have daily air quality forecasts as well, which rely very heavily on the weather forecast. I performed some data analysis on projects where we'd collected data for many months and had to figure out what it all meant. And then I helped develop training materials for various conferences. And some of these training materials included just the basics of meteorology, so that we could train potentially people who work for an air quality agency for the government with no meteorological background how to become air quality forecasters. So we try to teach them just the basics that they would need to get through their day. So our picture on the left here is just a picture of our weather room where we've got all of our monitoring data coming in. Then on the right is just an example of some data analysis showing this little top panel is showing the winds, and then the bottom is showing temperature and solar radiation by hour over a 5-day period. Okay, then after I'd been here about 3 years, I was promoted to project manager, so my job duties expanded at that point. So I started getting to have some control over how we did these analysis projects that came in, getting to make those decisions on the best approach. In addition, I expanded my own skill set to handle larger, more complex data sets, and I started learning database programming and some environmental software design, using both my knowledge as an end user as far as what do I want to see on the screen when I go to a website and what's going to make it easy to use, but then also knowing how to design it so that it takes advantage of the database structure underneath where all the data is stored. Okay, and then in addition to my work at Sonoma Technology, I have done some other, touched on some other areas of meteorology, including teaching at Santa Rosa Junior College in 2005. I really did enjoy my opportunities to teach introductory meteorology at both an undergrad and in grad school. So when I saw the announcement that the college was hiring, I went ahead and applied. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to teach for the last year due to budget cuts. They've eliminated all the meteorology courses, but it's something that I like to do one semester a year when the funding is there to offer the class. And in addition, I have interacted with many of the other meteorologists in the San Francisco Bay Area through the Bay Area chapter of the American Meteorological Society. So that's really helped me expand my knowledge of what other meteorological fields are out there. The San Francisco area is very diverse. We've got lots of different applications. It's been fun to learn about the different business areas. Let's see, so I think that was my last slide. I think I went a couple minutes late, so I will wrap up here and pass it back to Julie.